Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back into the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here to pop, lock, and mock it on a beautiful Friday. And this mock draft is all about the risk. What would our roster look like if I drafted some of the riskiest players that still had some potential for a lot of upside this season? It went all right. I can tell you that much. I got sniped a ton. Headliner Nation really put the gloves on for this mock draft. I got sniped all over the place for a lot of different players, but that is all right. I was going to do one strategy with the video, and then a couple of picks in, I was like, this isn't going to work. So then I decided, what if we just drafted some of the riskiest players this year? They had a lot of upside, but what would our roster look like if we just went completely on the risk side of the draft board, and what would happen? So we're going to take a look at that. It's also a Superflex draft, so a lot of you out there that play in Superflex leagues, you're going to get an opportunity to see what it may look like. And on top of that, if you don't play a Superflex league, that's okay, because this will give you an opportunity to see kind of how the draft board would fall if quarterbacks started going early. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to officially announce it. Headliner listener leagues are now available. That is right. Do you think you have what it takes? Our listener leagues this year and this video is going to be powered by our friends over at Fantrax. So if you're wanting to jump into our listener leagues, number one, first and foremost, you have to set up your free account by going to fantrax.com/headliners. When you sign up, throw that headliners code in the promo code area as well, just so they are aware, just in case there's any kind of, mix up with the website there. Just throw that headliners code in the promo code area. Make sure that you get signed up that way and set up your free account. That's gonna number one, allow you to do any mock drafts that we do throughout the year. So go ahead and get that done right away. But then step two, there is a pinned comment on this video that is going to have the information on how to join the league. Make sure you go down to that pinned comment, click on the link. That's going to let you join the league. There's going to be potentially thousands of teams in this. We're going to have a ton of 12-team leagues. And then at the end of the year, the winners of those leagues are all going to come together for the playoffs, and they're going to battle it out to reign supremacy of Headliner Nation. So do not miss out on this opportunity to show Headliner Nation what you have, and if you are going to be bringing home the bacon this year. But ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to jump on over to the mock draft and really start taking a look at how this mock draft went. Make sure you hit that like button for me. If we get to 1,000 likes on this video, maybe I'll give away a draft guide. So hit that like button for me so we can give away a draft guide to somebody out there. You can order your draft guide right now as well to help you prepare for our listener leagues. And here we go, jumping right into the action all the way down. We're picking out the 10th spot in this draft. And then don't forget, Superflex. So that's why you see a couple of quarterbacks off the board already. And we've got a lot of running backs, right? Anytime we do a mock draft around here, you almost know that we are going to have a lot of running backs coming off the board right away. Nick Chubb going there at the 1.9. Now it's to me at the 110. And listen, I wanted a running back here. I really did. I wanted to take Joe Mixon. But with Cooper Kupp, really the consensus wide receiver one on the board, how could I? I couldn't pass on him there. So I had to go with Cooper Kupp, which, again, that's why you gotta go. You gotta flow with any type of draft that you have, because anything could happen at any point in time. And I wasn't expecting Cooper Kupp to be there at the 10 spot. So, of course, I'm going to take him there, even though it throws my plans off a little bit. Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase for Dave the Flav going at the 12 and the 1 in the second round. I decide, after looking through a couple of options here, thought about a running back. There was no one that I really wanted to jump on. So I decided to go with my quarterback, knowing that there could potentially be a run before it gets all the way back to me. So I decided to go with Joey B. Burrow, baby. I think he's in for a huge year. Skipping forward here into the third round now. A couple more wide receivers off the board after my last pick. And then you see another big run there on quarterbacks and running backs. Running backs flying off the board. Love James's start out of the 1.01 with Taylor Swift and Fournette. And you're going to see here in a couple of minutes why I absolutely loved what he did with his team at the start of the draft. But coming back to me, I was like, all right, I'm going to go with the quarterback. I think there's going to be a run on quarterback. There's a little bit of a mini run, 4 and 5 picks there, but was not expecting all the running backs to continue coming off the board the way they did. So now we get to me at the 310 here. I was going to go with Alvin Kamara and just be like, all right, he could end up being suspended, but I'm going to go with him anyway for right now, and we'll see what happens. Kamara goes in the pick before me. I can tell you right now, Nevermore sniped me a couple of times in this draft. So I decided to go with Cam Akers. And now this is where things start to come together, where I'm like, all right, we're going to risk it for the biscuit. Cooper Kupp is a really great pick at the very beginning, right? No complaints about Cooper Kupp. Maybe Joe Burrow was a little bit early, but we know in the offense that he's in, it could be absolutely amazing. And then Cam Akers coming back from that Achilles. I'm not a big Cam Akers fan, but in the 3rd round, when there's not a whole lot of running backs left for me to go with, I'm going to go ahead and start risking it in this draft. I'm going to go with a whole lot of risky players that could potentially bring me some nice upside. So here at the 4-3, I decided to go with CeeDee Lamb. I was thinking about Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs goes right before me, so I take a look at the wide receivers and I see CeeDee Lamb is still sitting there. Now you might be asking, Kyle, why did you go CeeDee Lamb over Mike Evans? We'll talk about that here in a few minutes coming up in this draft, but I decided to go with CeeDee Lamb at the 4-3 after Josh Jacobs ended up coming off the board. Now we're going to jump ahead again. See a nice little run there on running backs again. A lot of quarterbacks coming off as well. It's all the way back to me. I was thinking about George Kittle here at the 5-10. I get sniped on George Kittle. So now I'm taking a look at running backs because I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to take a running back with one of the next 2 picks. And the guys behind me, I know that they didn't really go running back heavy, so I decided to get a guy that I really like, maybe a little bit early at the 5-10 for A.J. Dillon. But again, a lot of risk associated with this. A lot of risk associated with this draft. But we're risking it for the biscuit, baby. A whole lot of upside potentially to be had as well. A.J. Dillon, how much is Aaron Jones going to take from him? Well, realistically, probably a lot of the passing work. But in a video I did the other day where I talked about A.J. Dillon and what exactly he could do, oh man, I smashed the over on Prize Picks 100%. 100% smashing the over on Prize Picks there because I definitely think he is going to go over 850 yards. Brandon Cooks, Justin Fields going off after me. I also knew that my next pick here at 5-10 was going to be Miles Sanders, but Miles Sanders didn't last for me. Dakota Bear ended up grabbing him a couple of picks before. So unfortunately, he was not there either. So one thing I'm taking a look at right now, definitely kind of going through the running backs, looking at all the running backs here. I'm going to take a quick look at the wide receivers. What do we have with wide receivers? And then I'm going to go down to quarterback because now I'm seeing that, all right, quarterback is starting to get really thin. And in a super flex league, definitely got to be taking a look at quarterbacks. Let's risk it again, baby. We're going to risk it again with Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance is going to have a Patrick Mahomes-esque rise. Maybe not the crazy MVP type rookie year that Patrick Mahomes had right away, not rookie year, but first full year. Maybe not that, but still a really big year for Trey Lance incoming. I believe in his talent and what Kyle Shanahan can do. A lot of mixtures here. A lot of wide receivers end up coming off the board. Was really kind of looking at DJ Moore. I didn't think he would end up getting back to me, but he didn't. That's fine. Deontay Johnson was going to be there potentially as well, but he comes off the board, so I go with Chris Godwin. Now, this is why I didn't go with Mike Evans earlier, and I went with CeeDee Lamb instead, because I thought to myself, hey, I know Chris Godwin is going to be available in a couple of rounds because we're going to have a couple of tight ends coming off the board. People are still going to be trying to get their running backs, and we're going to have some wide receiver runs as well, but Chris Godwin is a little bit further down. I really like Chris Godwin. He's going to be a guy that might start the year off a little bit slow, but will pick things up as the year goes on. So getting a guy like Chris Godwin, who before his injury was over 1,000 yards last year in the 7th round, again, a little bit of a risky pick, but could end up working out really, really well for me. So right now, my starting wide receivers are Kupp, Lamb, and Godwin. I've got my quarterbacks as Joe Burrow and Trey Lance, and I've got Cam Akers and A.J. Dillon as my running backs. Back to me here at the 8-3 now. Again, taking a little bit of a look around in terms of what I want to do here. Now, I thought about Darrell Henderson, but I was like, I think it's too early for Darrell Henderson, right? I've got Cam Akers. So I don't really, I'm going to want to try and potentially get Darrell Henderson, but I thought he would end up sticking around. So I decided to go with my tight end here, and I go with Dallas Goedert. Knowing that Dallas Goedert would not make it back to me, I had to go with him here. I love Dallas Goedert this season. Highly efficient last year. I think with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside, the Dallas Goedert is going to be a really nice pick. Even though if he doesn't have the volume, the efficiency is going to be absolutely insane. I wanted Isaiah Spiller here, and Nevermore got me again. I was thinking either Chris Olave or Isaiah Spiller. Neither of those guys could end up getting back to me. I was kind of hoping Adam Thielen would make it back to me. Adam Thielen didn't make it. So I decided to get absolutely risky again, and I go with Michael Thomas. Now, I'm not a believer in Michael Thomas this season. Not a big fan of him potentially, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter in this draft because, again, I decided early on I'm going to go all risky picks that could have a whole lot of upside. If Thomas is healthy and if he stays healthy all season, yeah, you could be looking at a pretty decent year for him. In fact, look at my wide receivers. If we get 6 weeks in and Lamb and Thomas are fully healthy, I've got Kupp, I've got Lamb, I've got Godwin, and I've got Michael Thomas. I've got 4 guys that all could potentially be towards that high wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 type of area. Worst case scenario, I trade Michael Thomas and I try to get a running back in return. Why not? Okay. It's going to give me some good potential trade chips later on. My running backs are a mess right now, though, and the running backs are going to be an issue for me because I've only got Akers and I've only got Dillon. So I've got to start grabbing some guys that I truly believe could end up having a great opportunity to get a decent amount of touches this season. James Robinson, number 1 on the board there right now, but coming off the Achilles, I don't really trust him, especially with the Travis Etienne hype right now. So I take a look around at the running backs and I decide to go with Ronald Jones. Really think Ronald Jones could start stealing a lot of touches this year, a lot of touches from Clyde Edwards-Helaire if CEH is hurt, if he can't stay healthy, or if he's just not that good this season. That is where Ronald Jones will start to get a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. If he unseats CEH, now I'm okay. Now I've got 3 definite running backs that I can rely on. Cam Akers and then Ronald Jones could be my RB1 and RB2. And then A.J. Dillon becomes my flex at that point. Now, at this point, I am taking a peek at quarterbacks again because I know that I'm going to have a quarterback 3 in a super flex league. I was looking around, wasn't really anybody I was wanting to jump on too much right there, but I actually decided as I scrolled down, I'm going to skip it and I'm going to go with Sony Michel. Now, there was a couple of guys before that I was kind of potentially looking at coming my way. I was fine with it. I do like Sony Michel as kind of a late pick this year because if you grab Sony Michel a little bit later on, I think he's a guy that if he stays healthy could end up becoming the most consistent back in the Miami backfield. So I'm not trusting that backfield too much. But again, I got to get risky here. I've got to get risky in some way, shape, or form because if I don't go after these guys that I think could end up taking touches, I'm going to be in a whole lot of trouble. I'm already in a whole lot of trouble. So I've got to hope that these guys take over as top running back options, and then we're good to go at that point. And then we can really start to piece some guys together. So I need a little bit of luck with this roster based on what I have right now, but that's why we're going to take a shot at some of these running backs at this point in the draft. So taking a look still at everybody here, I decided to go with Carson Wentz. As I mentioned a moment ago, needed that third QB, knowing that he probably wouldn't make it around to me. That's fine. I actually went with him over Zach Wilson because Zach Wilson, Mac Jones and Zach Wilson have the same bye weeks as Joe Burrow, so that wouldn't do me any good. Now, coming back to me here at the 12 or at the 13-10, I decide to go low. I was going to go with Devontae Parker here. I wanted Devontae Parker here. I was going to go with Devontae Parker. Devontae Smith, I was like, oh, I'll take him. How is he still available? And then I realized there was an issue in the system and he was still showing up. I'm not really 100% sure why it did that, but it did. So I decided again to get risky. Let's go with a guy that is on a big contract in New York. They want him to work out. We know Kenny Golladay has been a big play guy in the past. Let's go with Kenny Golladay. Maybe he can establish himself with a healthier season as the wide receiver 1 there in New York. So we're going to go risky. We're going to take him a little bit later on, and hopefully he does establish himself as that wide receiver 1. Again, my pick here would have been Devontae Parker. Would have liked that Devontae Parker pick a whole lot more here at the 13-10, but didn't end up making it back to me. Like I said, I kept getting sniped. On both sides of this draft, I kept getting sniped. These guys got me good. Really appreciate that when Headliner Nation, when I'm drafting with our supporters, they're out there doing that to us. So absolutely loved it. No problems whatsoever. Got to pivot a little bit here. Decided to go with Kenny Galladay. Could end up working out. So I started to drop some people in my queue over here on the right-hand side. I'm looking around. I decided to go with Raheem Mostert here. Just because, again, I was thinking about Christian Watson here. I was like, I don't think Christian Watson will make it back to me, but I don't think that Raheem Mostert's going to make it back to me either. So I decided to go with him. So then I can have the two big playmakers from Miami. Nothing against Chase Edmonds. I think Chase Edmonds is a fine running back, but I think he's a pass-catching back. I think that's what he's better as. I don't think he's got the explosiveness on the ground that Mostert or Sony Michel could end up having. So it gets back to me here at the 15-10, taking a little bit of a look around. I decided to add to some of my wide receiver depth with DJ Chark, a guy that absolutely could take the field off, or top of the field off for Detroit this year, especially if Jameson Williams doesn't end up being healthy to start the season. So I say, yeah, why not? Let's throw out DJ Chark, big playmaker. Again, we're getting a little bit of risk. We've got some risk here with the picks, but let's see what the risk does to us. Let's see how much it hurts us here. And another thing, too, about this draft, too, for those of you out there that don't play in Superflex leagues, but you're wondering, what if I take a quarterback early? How will it look? Well, you can see what would happen in the first couple of rounds where there was some quarterbacks taken, not a ton, but a few quarterbacks taken. You can kind of judge here, too, by looking at the first couple of rounds, how many guys could end up falling to you. So just keep that in mind. Like if you see guys going quarterback heavy, or if there's anybody going quarterback heavy, you could see who could end up falling to you, but you also see who you miss out on. So just keep that in mind too. If you don't play in a Superflex league, still a really good opportunity for you to take a look at what could potentially happen. So we're coming back to me here at this point. Only 3 picks left. I know with my last 2 picks, I'm going to end up going kicker and defense. Normally, if I'm drafting like a real league, if I were drafting this early in the offseason, I wouldn't take a defense or a kicker. I would just keep building up depth players that could potentially end up helping me out at some point in time. But with it being a real draft, kind of a real-ish draft here for you guys, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I decided to go with Hassan Haskins. Let me get the backup to Derrick Henry. Haskins is not a guy that's going to be a huge playmaker by any means, but if they have to scale Henry back at any point, or if they decide to give him some rest, Haskins is really the perfect fit for that offense. So I think he's going to have some value this year, especially for you Derrick Henry owners. Just in case you're worried about him breaking down, get Haskins a little bit later on. I think it could work out really, really well in that offense. And then the last 2 picks for me, here at the 17-10, taking a look at kickers, who am I going to go with kicker-wise here? So many choices, right? I'm kidding. I just go with Dustin Hopkins. Let's go with the kicker for the Los Angeles Chargers. We know that he's going to be kicking away in that offense, right? We know that's definitely going to happen. And then I'll end up going with the defense as well. And again, I'm not too worried about it this early in the offseason. A lot of times with defenses, you're going to find defenses on the waiver wire after the first couple of weeks that are just playing a lot better than anticipated. And when that happens, those are defenses I want to jump on. So unless you're drafting like an elite defense, which I'm not going to do very often, for me, it's not something that I'm very worried about. All right. It's not something that I'm crazy about trying to get an elite defense. If you do get one, that's fine. If you saw earlier in the draft, the Dallas Cowboys defense went in like the 10th round. That's too early. We don't want to do that. I'm not interested in that, but it is what it is. I'm saying like maybe like 14th round, 14th or 15th is the earliest I would go with a defense if you really wanted to grab somebody that was that high end. So I end up taking Pittsburgh here. I spoiled it for you all. I'm so sorry. I end up taking Pittsburgh here. But, let's talk a little bit about the roster construction here real quick. So, quarterbacks, Joe Burrow and Trey Lance, a whole lot of upside there, right? We know Trey Lance can sling it. Some risk involved with him, especially. A lot of people don't think he's going to be the starter. I do. I fully believe he'll end up being the starter. So I have no qualms about that. I have no concerns over that, but it's risky investing in a guy, coming from a smaller division of college football, but he has everything. He's got the tools to be very, very successful as an NFL quarterback. So a little bit of risk there, but that's okay. Joe Burrow, I mean, is there really a whole lot of risk with Joe Burrow? Probably not, but we did shoot for the upside there. And we took him over Lamar Jackson. Nothing against Lamar Jackson. I just think Joe Burrow, just because he's not running as much, has an opportunity to stay healthier, even though he has dealt with an ACL tear recently and Lamar Jackson has not. So for those of you out there that want to tell me to eat my words, you can. Cam Akers, A.J. Dillon at the running back position for me as my two guys to start. I don't love it. I don't love it at all. I hate it, actually. Listen, I don't like my team here. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't like my team. I thought James Dennison in the one spot had the best team. I don't like my team at all. But again, that's what happens. We try out different scenarios. That's what we do with these mock drafts. So I wanted to try out a scenario here. What happens in a super flex? Let's get a little bit risky with everything. Let's see what happens. Let's take some guys that there's been a lot of questions about and see how they all look together on a team. How good could that team potentially end up being? Because a lot of the guys that you have questions on, you probably are thinking, man, I could get them in a discount. So there's a lot of guys on here that you all could end up getting at a pretty decent discount. And I don't hate that. So I want to show you what that looks like together, because you could end up with some of these guys together on the same team. Kupp, Lamb, Godwin, as long as Godwin can get himself healthy, for a majority of the season, really be ready to go come week 1, whatever it may be. That's a pretty solid wide receiver core with Michael Thomas slated in there is one of my slot receiver, or is one of my flex spots there. Absolutely love that option there. I mean, overall, I don't think the team is bad if it was like 2 years ago. Right? But this year, we definitely have a lot of risk associated with this team and what could end up happening. I really have to bank on Ronald Jones or Sony Michel doing something, or Mostert or Haskins. So my running back situation is bad. Well, there you have it. Like I told you, I was not a big fan of the roster, but it is what it is. Again, this is why we mock draft, to really kind of go over these opportunities. What would it look like? What wouldn't it look like? This is not how I would draft. But again, I was just trying something different, throwing some different options out there. I highly encourage you to do that. If you're mock drafting, do a mock draft completely opposite of how you would actually do it. So then you can at least see what a team may look like. And then maybe you're like, you know what? Maybe I should inch a little bit more this way. Maybe not entirely this way, but maybe a little bit closer to it. And it could really help you figure out exactly what you're going to do. So again, hit that like button for me. Make sure you follow us here and subscribe to the Fantasy Headliners if you're new. And then leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the draft strategy. Who do you think had the best team? If we get 1,000 likes on this video, I'm going to pick someone from the comments to give away a free draft guide too. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on third down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this Headliner Nation. I'm a headliner.